All right, good morning, everybody. We have an awesome VR panel right now with three of the big experts in the business. So let's open it up real quick. What is happening in virtual reality right now in storytelling that everyone should be really excited about? I'll throw that to you, Dave.
What is happening? A lot of stuff is happening. I think, I know Marc and Jacques are going to talk about storytelling done by professionals who can bring live experiences to large audiences. I've been focusing a lot on personal storytelling and how VR can enable that. So not just big production companies and studios, but individuals who can share experiences and increase their connections to other people, communications. We can get more into the details, but I think VR is more than just entertainment and gaming, which is great, but it's also about communicating and really holding on to personal life experiences and sharing it with other people.
Yeah, if I may step in, I think one interesting aspect of VR right now is that as opposed to movies and photography before, it will not start by professionals and then consumer. It'll be consumers doing things on their own while professional storytellers will also be doing things at the same time. And I think these two things will nourish one another. So that makes it even more exciting than just the arrival of a new technology.
Yeah, it's really to me, what's exciting is the fact that it's both at the same time the invention of a new medium, but also the democratization of the way both content creation and content consumption is going to happen. So instead of it happening, being in the hands of just a few people, because a Gear VR handset costs $99, because a 360-degree camera that we're going to introduce in about a month is going to cost a few $100s. It's going to enable just about everybody in this room and beyond to be the people who are going to shape
Correct.
What this medium is going to be, what this medium is going to do. And that's what's exciting.
Yeah, how's that going to work? So smartphones have turned everyone into filmmakers. They've turned everyone into photographers. It's so easy. How does three-dimensional video? How is that going to look for the consumer? Like, how does that work?
Well, I mean, the beauty of and I wish I had brought the 360 camera that we're about to launch, but it's basically an eyeball, a little bit bigger than a golf ball, with two lenses on each side. And the beauty is that you just control it from your phone. You push a button, it films without turning. It films, everything, stitches it together instantaneously, gives you the ability to both, post it on Facebook, on YouTube, or to put it on a VR platform and view it in a VR VR headset. So it's really very easy, and there are, I know, you've invested in some company that's helping create new editing tools. So there's going to be lots of again tools that are going to be born to not just democratize the filming, but also the editing, the posting. Of content, as well as probably also the rating of the content, because in the end, there's going to be both the top content that's going to be done by the Felix and Paul and Verse, Chris Milk of this world, but also more the indies and the user-generated content. So there's going to need to be some mechanism to make sure that there is quality content.
And where will this content live? I mean, is there going to be a YouTube for VR? Is it going to be Facebook with their investment in Oculus? Is it up for grabs right now? Who's going to control this platform?
I think, the answer ultimately remains to be seen, but right now what we're seeing are big companies like Facebook and YouTube declaring their intent to help become an aggregator and a distributor of content. We're in there as well. We have an app called Milk for VR. And so I think there's going to be lots of different combinations of companies offering the equivalent of apps or services and other companies providing platforms to distribute these apps and services.
Quick question for the audience. How many people here have experienced VR before? So we got a very savvy group here. How do you think, what's going to be the experience that's going to break into the mainstream? I mean, there's been a ton of buzz on VR, but I feel like most of the world and Americans haven't experienced it. What's going to be that experience that gets, my dad to do VR?
It'll be compelling content, either user-generated, because you can expect people from regular people to do exciting things with this, and also professional doing something completely unexpected and different, because it'll be a complete different way of telling a story. I mean, we've been used for 100 years or so to have the story in front of us, told by someone in a certain order. Here, it's different. It's all around you. It cannot be anymore just one shot after the other. It has to be an experience all around you that you have to follow. So the creators of these experiences will have to think out of the old box and come up with a different way of telling the story. That's the part that we're really excited about.
The best thing I did actually with my own team, I had an offsite with 50 of my team, and I put them in groups of 6 or 7 people, and I gave them each an hour and a half and a 360 camera to go and do a story. And it was the best thing I could do to make them understand how different that medium was, because in an hour they had to find how to make a story that's interesting, because to your point, the ones that were interesting were the ones where there was a narrative that was all around, but where you had cues to know where to look. Because if you don't give the audience, a cue on where to look, then it's boring. So you need through sound, you need through, to have some cues.
Give me an example. What were some of the good experiences that the team came
Well, there was one where basically it was a guy who lost his steam. So he kept, everywhere he was, he lost his steam. And you realize by looking that he lost his steam because he was not paying attention, he was getting drunk, therefore falling asleep. So they had created a whole story in about an hour's time where they discovered by themselves almost how storytelling in 360 needed to be done. And so to answer the question, to me, it's the more we can put both the consumption and the creation in the hands of people, the more we will help accelerate the medium. And that's where I think we need all of this community, both on the content creation and the content consumption, to experiment with that. There are lots of forms of storytelling. The medium has not been yet defined, and both from the pure entertainment side to the utility side. I know later Scott Harrison is going to talk today, and Charity Water, for instance, is one of the companies that has used VR in an amazing way to create to create compassion.
Yeah.
And so that's what is going to democratize it, is people experimenting it.
I think to answer your question, I agree with what was said, but it wasn't one thing that made online video pop or made YouTube, right? There's going to be lots of different things that become hits, and some of the content in VR is going to be created by people with the express purpose of trying to get as large an audience as possible to create a phenomena. And a lot of it also is not going to be content created for large audiences, but it could be kind of one-to-one or one to a small group, right? And that's what, when Marc describes this camera that we're talking about, it can do live streaming, so you can literally be at a place that you're not and experience something at that same time, or you can take it later. You can consume it in a VR headset and literally look around and be there, or you could experience it in 2D, right? And so there'll be a lot more, I think, opportunities or gateways to consume the content. But I think what's going to get your dad to try it may not be that high-end video that everyone's seen, although it could be. Yeah. But my guess is that it's going to be most likely a combination of something like that. And for those of you who are parents, being able to relive your first child's first steps and literally be able to walk around your child and feel like you're almost there again, or relive certain things in your past life that were documented, big events. And when people see that, they'll understand, oh my goodness, this is more real and more immersive in some ways than actual reality. And that's why I think people are going to really get into it.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
because we will be able also to enhance reality. That's the other layer that this technology allows. You can tell a story by filming, excuse me for the 20th century word, the reality, and then you can superimpose all sorts of other things coming from other images or CG or stuff like that. So that makes it even more exciting. I think that what will make it work is that you will have a much better experience than what was available before, and then storytellers, small or big, coming from the crowds or coming from Hollywood, will also take this and make it even better in terms of a way of telling a story.
Well, I'm gonna put you on the spot because you're with Cirque du Soleil, which is just the masters of live entertainment, every sense, sight, sound, everything. How could you give me an example of like your dream vision of Cirque in VR? Like what would be that new storytelling?
You can get a taste of this if you watch Curios, the thing we did with Samsung. The first thing we did, the first decision we made was not to put the device in front of the show, but inside the show. So if you put that helmet, you're on stage, you're one of the characters on the stage, and you're playing with the other people. They come and they greet you and they show you things, and it's all around you. That's the very, very beginning. That's the first step. I think that going further, we can start creating material only for this purpose, as opposed to adapting existing material. And then we can add other elements like the CG elements and cutting and taking you from one place to the other, which is something you cannot do when you watch a show. We can give you the option to watch the show from within in different places.
So it'd be a mix of I'm in the audience and under my seat I put on a VR for part of it, or I'm on my couch at home watching or experiencing the show.
My answer to your question was about the VR guy wanting to create something for the VR. I have colleagues in the organization who are also looking at doing things like this. How can we bring a VR layer to an actual live show? That's something we're also pursuing.
Another example, a couple of things we've done, which I find quite compelling, is when you actually use VR to enhance an experience. So we've done a couple of things with the Six Flags. First, we did 4D chairs. So imagine chairs like this that are actually moving as you have your VR headset. And for those of you, we have them in our 837 concept space in New York in the Meatpacking District. And you really feel that you're going through a proper loop, although you're seated in a chair. But the experience is really tricking your brain completely. And the other thing we did with them, we actually worked. They're going to have several by, I think, in the next few months rolling out. They already have it in LA in their parks, where they have transformed some of their maybe older roller coaster by creating an experience where everybody on the roller coaster puts a Gear VR headset and goes through a complete different reality experience on the roller coaster, and you are in this fantastic world where you can shoot from your headsets, and you're in this imaginative city. And to be honest, it was not that obvious to think that a roller coaster could be reinvented. Actually a fully depreciated asset could be completely renewed with a piece of equipment and a phone that you put on your head. And now, as they build more and more content, people probably will be able to even choose their ride and decide which ride they want to go to. So it creates unlimited experience opportunities. But again, there are hundreds of opportunities like that to reinvent business models that are up for grab for entrepreneurs, developers, which is what we're looking to partner with, because at the end, the more these things will pop up, the more we will be interested as a company like Samsung is kind of like leading the way in equipping people with VR to market all those great experiences, to accelerate the development of the medium.
So, obviously the implications for business, but things like travel and education, you completely redefined because it's not just repurposing, if that's the right word, what you thought was a particular experience and completely adding a different dimension to it, but you have the ability with VR to do it with a community, right? So maybe I want to see Jacques' new show, and I have friends in different parts of the world. We can all effectively, in the future, have a front row seat. Or at better, to Jacques' point, we could actually be on stage. And what's interesting also about that is, even though it's one piece of content, because it's VR, how I consume it and where I look could be very different from the way Marc sees it. And so even though we're in the show and in Jacques' content, our experiences could be slightly different because of where we're paying attention and where we're immersing ourselves. So the possibilities are endless. And when you think about that, it's pretty mind-blowing, because the way you program it, the way you curate it, the way you approach it is so different fundamentally from any other storytelling medium.
Yeah, one of the things that David is talking about is what we call mass trigger. So the ability to have, for instance, all of you wear a Gear VR headset and simultaneously trigger the same content to start for each and every one of you, except that everyone will look in a different direction, therefore everybody will see something slightly different. So you create...
Like in real life.
Like in real life,
life.
exactly.
Right,
So
some of
to
you
me,
are
it's
looking
as
at your
close as...
watches or your phones or us or one of us on the couch, but you're all still in the same room. And that's really
I think
interesting from a
this is the
storytelling.
most exciting aspect as far as we're concerned. It is, we have to invent a new way to tell a story.
Yeah.
And that is exciting for creative minds, because you can use everything that's been thought of over the centuries, but right now you have to say, okay, I'm going to place you somewhere, and it can be plural, by the way, because you can move from time to time, but somewhere, and something's going to happen around you, and you can only look one way.
Right.
But we're staging all around and even above you. So that means you have to think of a story of once upon a time in a totally different manner, so that it's fun for people to watch, to experience, and to relive, because you've seen it one way, and then you can decide to see it again in a different way. And it's like seeing 2 films, or 3 films, or 5 films, or 10 films with the same basic matter.
One of the things I often like to say is, when the caveman came back from a hunting, experience, they painted the hunt all around the cave in 360. And then we invented the portrait, and we started to paint in a frame. And then when we did the picture, we did the picture in a frame. And then when we added, moving images, we did it in a frame. And it's the first time that we actually have the opportunity to go beyond the frame. And this is what's exciting, is there is a complete new canvas that is 360, which means that you can't trap the action, inside a box, inside a frame. So we just launched, for instance, Samsung together with Vice, we launched a documentary series, which we call Beyond the Frame, which is all about documenting how virtual reality is going to change creativity, compassion, communication, commerce. And again, the beauty is that nobody really knows. It's for everybody, in this room and beyond to define it.
Yeah, the empathy is very important. The first time I experienced, you mentioned it before with Charity Water, the first time I experienced virtual reality was with, I don't know if Scott Harrison's here. He had an incredible gala, and everyone put on VR, and we experienced together. Everyone went from being in Manhattan to in a well in Ethiopia, and the empathy and the feeling was there, first with me and the people in Ethiopia, but also the shared group together. That was really impactful.
Yep.
What is this going to do for humans, community, whether it's in the same room or across the globe? And that's a huge opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the sort of memes that's been out there that I disagree with is this idea that virtual reality is going to be isolating, and that people are going to remove themselves from the real world, when in fact I think the opposite is going to happen. And in fact, you're going to be more connected and expose yourself to different people and situations. And not to take Scott's thunder, but I was there that evening. And a lot of people really have a huge heart and have supported an organization like Charity Water, but have never actually gone to Ethiopia, have never actually seen the people that they're trying to help. And to be there, like viscerally, you feel like you're there and you get to meet these people. It was a remarkable experience. And this is still very early, right? I mean, the technology we have to do our part and make sure that the hardware gets better, the software gets better, that you can capture the content and edit it. But we need the creativity of entrepreneurs and storytellers to go out there and make the content and the services.
As of now,
and that's what's exciting, right?
Yeah. As of now, VR is probably as close as it gets to teletransportation. I mean, you can instantaneously transport yourself into a place, you know, like this well in Africa, and you really have a feeling of being there because it captures 100% of your attention wherever you look. So it's not like looking at it on a screen on a computer where you know it's not real because, you know, you have other things to distract you. It captures 100% of your attention for as long as you have the headset on.
So whenever there's a new medium, the advertisers follow. What is the ad side thinking with VR right now? Are they working with Samsung or have any creative ideas to kind of... if you have total focus, you want to get in there, right?
Well, what I can tell you is that, I mean, anecdotally, the interactions I've had with people in companies that would advertise or people who help facilitate that business is that people are very, very interested. And you know, Marc mentioned that we came out with the first consumer VR headset back in November, which is still pretty recent. It's $99. We're bundling it with our flagship smartphones, and we have over 1 million devices out there. So on one hand, it's a lot, but on the other hand, it's really a drop in the bucket. It's just getting started. But I would say the advertisers are seeing that the engagement and the recall of people when they have this experience is extremely high. So the interest is really high, and we'll see how it develops, but I think people are willing to really explore in a much more aggressive and organic way than I would say even for online video back in the day.
Cool. All right, we have about 1.5 minutes left, and I want to jump to the future real quick. So 3 years from now, if the 4 of us are having this conversation about VR storytelling, what are we talking about 3 years down the line?
Well, I think our friends will have done a fabulous job in the technology, for sure. So the screens will be fabulous. You won't see pixels anymore. The speed of processing will be very high, so we'll be able to do a lot of things in live action. And there won't be as many technical difficulties to overcome in order to create fabulous content as we are faced with now, but overcoming.
To me, if you go back and you make an association to what this medium is with the invention of cinema, and the Lumiere brother, you know, the train going into the train station, black and white, no sound, you know, and you look at how fast progress is going, we will probably be in 3 to 5 years' time where we are today with cinema. You know, we will have gone like almost 100 years of progress. So nobody knows. If somebody had told you, you know, when you had this first black and white, soundless experience of the Lumiere brother, that one day you would have it in your pocket and you would be able to, you know, scroll through a quantity of films in color and potentially put it on your face and see it in 3D, people would have said, "You crazy." So I think this is how fast this is going to... Now, having said that, this is why we need people to jump in, because right now we're just in between the hype curve and the adoption of innovation curve. So, you know, it could still be, a lot of people say, is it going to be a hype? We certainly don't believe it will, but again, it going into real mass adoption comes from us doing our job to scaling the hardware, scaling the marketing of the content creation of consumption, but we can only market what exists, and we can't create it all. That's not how we see our job. We want to facilitate it, but the quantity of content creation that's going to come and storytelling is what's going to make the medium.
David, quick prediction?
I think in the same way that people are increasingly documenting their lives through photos and social media, and to some extent video today, I think a lot of people will be doing that with VR, and they'll be able to share experiences with folks, and that will, in the same way that we didn't know the changes in smartphones would create a whole ecosystem effect on different apps and services companies. I think in 3 to 5 years' time, you're going to see businesses that hard to conceive of today, that will exist only by virtue of the fact that VR is actually here. right? So would there have been an Uber before a smartphone? I'm not sure, but you know, there's going to be those kind of equivalents in the near future.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.